Hello, I'm Joe Piccirilli with RoseWater Energy, and I'm at ADG in Scottsdale, Arizona. And with me is Chris Matthews, a principal at ADG. Chris, thank you for letting us invade your showroom. By the way, it looks great. I was wandering around before we started shooting, and I loved what I saw.
Well, we are fortunate to have you here, Joe, along with RoseWater. And you know, we spend a lot of time and a lot of forethought in designing this space. And at Acoustic Designs Group, we love showcasing premier products, RoseWater being right at the top of that list.
Well, thank you. Chris, I'd like to take a few moments today and talk through a feature of the RoseWater that is rarely discussed, and that is our controller, which provides a tremendous amount of information both on what's happening at the utility level and what's happening within the showroom. So what I'd like to do is, obviously I have logged in. We're looking at, up there, we're looking at the dashboard for the RoseWater device that is here in the showroom. So, and if you look at this dashboard here in the upper right, you'll see the big OK. And the OK indicates that everything is functioning properly. There are no alarms. Everything is within spec, which is great. If there was an alarm, that would be red. Now, as you move along to the center, here you can see it has something called phase input and output loading. And that just really tells you how much demand you are putting on this device. So in this case, we're looking at, about 50%. So it's at half capacity.
Well, and I'm glad you pointed out, because the cool thing about that is we have our entire AV rack, right? 2 racks, theater, we have sound rooms, we have our entire Lutron lighting system on this, and we're at 50%.
That's great.
Right?
That's really great. So, and then if you move over to the far right hand, you'll see something called estimated battery runtime. And that only comes on when there's a power outage. And what would happen with that is once power outage occurs and the battery runtime gets to 12 hours, it will come on and tell you that you have 12 hours of runtime left. And then it will click down and give you an alert every hour on the hour. And at about 2 hours, the alerts get a little more assertive and they start to say, okay, you should start to power down because you don't want to run the batteries to zero. And we think, and I hopefully you'll agree, we think for your clients and for you, that's an extremely important.
It is, and I'll liken it to the idiot light on your car, right? For the non-electric vehicles, it screams at you, hey, you're out of gas, right? And here you are saying, you better start turning things off or I'm going to shut down, right? And so you shut things down and you start turning off less critical, you prioritize those items, and you extend your battery life, which is great to have those notifications, and it's built in.
Absolutely. So now I'm going to go to something that I think is very visual, and I don't know whether you use this one. Power flow is kind of an interesting chart. And it's very visual and it's simple. But what we're talking about here is where your power sources are coming at this moment. In this case, you're feeding, AC is on, so the grid is on. And I know soon you will have solar. And once you have your solar hooked up, you'll have solar on, and it will tell you how much solar, how much you're getting off the grid. If the power was down, it would tell you what your draw is in the battery and what is being fed to the loads in a very visual and easy to understand format. And I find this to be, particularly for consumers, to be extremely enlightening, and it makes them feel like, wow, look at this is really working. Because one of the things that I find interesting is a RoseWater device, no one knows, when it's functioning properly, no one knows it's there. You forget. And this is a way to let people know that, yes, you have this device and it's functioning.
Well, and as you point out, right, you have that AC source, then you have your redundancy, right? You see your batteries are green there at 100%. And when we do get our solar connected, right, the PV charger,
yep.
Right? So really we'll have 3 different, if you will, power sources all available to us. And once again, the beauty of it is, as we've experienced for the last 2.5 years, when there's a power outage, we don't know about it, right? Our lights stay on, our music continues to play, and our network stays up, right? What more could you ask for?
It's a perfect thing. I mean, we've had clients tell us in the past that, they've never noticed it, and they were on batteries, and all of a sudden they go, wow, there's a power outage, and I didn't know. And I'm going, well, and that's indeed why you want a RoseWater. So now I'm going to go to one of your favorites, I'm going to go to the performance log, and here we are, and I am going to go to AC input voltage. Give it a click. And here we have in real time what the power in this store looks like, both second to second, then minute to minute, and then as we see the bottom two charts, we have it measured every hour, and then we plot it for 30 days. And as you can see, what's coming, we can almost tell what time of day it is by what your voltage looks like. And I know you were telling me that because you put it up on your big screens here in the store, clients don't realize what power situation is in this area and of course through most of the country.
Well, I love your story when you talk about when you moved into Florida back in the 70s and there was 7 million people in the state. No additional power plants, and now you're at 21 million people in the state. Same power grid, the demand has tripled, right? And it's really not tripled in the amount of people, it's more than tripled because those beach cottages that used to be at West Palm are now 25, 35, 45,000 square feet, multiple buildings, and the power draw is huge. Similarly here, Palo Verde, our nuclear plant, I believe was built in the 80s. It's the last power plant that was built here. We have hundreds of thousands of people coming here every single year. The demand on our power grid with no new power plants being built is just like Florida. And you can see, you know, on these, this is why I like to show these graphs, is because people don't understand, like, oh yeah, I flip my light switch on and it turns on, and I start my vacuum cleaner and it turns on. But the grid and what it's actually doing inside of your home, and to show them you're not getting 120 to your appliance or to whatever device you're turning on. You're getting somewhere between, in the case of this lower graph, 118 and 124 and a half. Well,
It's a big swing.
It's a huge swing. And as you and I both know, devices, especially the microprocessors, they don't like that. They don't like to be, you know, here I'm getting underpowered and here I'm getting overpowered, and it's constant. You can see unless you're crossing that magic 120, you're never getting 120. Right. So for a brief minute, you are, and the 23 hours and 59 minutes left in the day, you're getting the wrong voltage.
Exactly. And this is a great visual presentation. I mean, and I know, you know, today we haven't had any power outages, but if you go to, let's look at the data, or let's look at the power outage. And this is a record of all of the power outages going back that have occurred in this store. And if you start looking at them, these power outages, because it's hours, minutes, seconds, power outages can be very short. I mean, you see here 8 seconds, 10 seconds, 21 seconds, but they're always occurring. And the question is, have they ever been noticed in this store?
Absolutely not. The beauty of RoseWater, right there. You know, it's interesting. I know we tend to have lightning in the summertime when we have our monsoons. Yeah. Florida's a little different. It's more like year-round in Florida. But as you mentioned, the power outages they're brief. You know, the longest one we see here is a little over 3.5 minutes. The beauty of it is we don't know. Imagine, you know, you can look at on 220, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 showing. So that's 5 times in one day that these devices would have power cycled, come back on, power cycle, come back on. Plus, remember, they're never getting the correct voltage. Correct. So what do you think that's doing to the lifespan and the performance capability of everything that's connected to that power?
Well, and I'm so glad you pointed out, and you are very articulate in describing it, but it is something that people don't realize. You know, they get that little blip and it sort of becomes, they're not conscious of it until everything has to be rebooted, and then it's a problem. So that's kind of interesting, and again, gives you some idea of how power problems occur and when they occur, and we log it for years. So now I'm going to go to events and alerts, and this is kind of more engineering oriented. And the reason this is here is because our team continues to monitor this device. And these events and alerts will not only are sent to you, so you know what's going on, but they are also sent to the client. So the client knows, and what's happening here is we see when power is way too high from the utility, and it'll send out an alert. We see when power is way too low. We obviously record any kind of micro outage, but this records every event or an alert that has happened, and again, over a 2 or 3 year period, and logs it. And it allows us to track the performance of the device. So when we can sit down and go, wow, the inverters are performing exactly like they should perform, the rectifiers are performing exactly like they should perform, because if we see something out of spec, we can anticipate it and replace it.
Well, you mentioned these events and alerts, and as you know, it gets quite hot here in Arizona during the summer. And when we get these, most of the time it's your July, August, and September,
yes.
Right? And as you're well aware, our RoseWater lives in our warehouse, and it gets quite hot there. It might be 115 outside, but it's quite warm inside that. And so we'll get a notice, hey, I'm a little hot. Okay, I'm fine. Okay, I'm still a little hot. Okay, I'm fine. The great thing about that is RoseWater just keeps right on going. It's just letting you know it's a little warm in here. Can you turn the AC on down a little bit more, whatever, but it never shuts down. It just keeps right on rolling through whatever paces we put it through. And the summers here definitely put everything through its paces.
Yes, you do. And I since I monitor the alerts myself, I get to see, in fact, I think I called you a couple times saying, Chris, the RoseWater's complaining a little bit, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then for those who are truly geeks, my favorite, I go to something called shelf layout. And the shelf layout allows us, you see each of those little green squares represents an inverter. And what I like about it is you see the inverters on both sides. So the top is one leg, the bottom is the other leg. And the inverters are balanced. So, as we looked earlier, loads are balanced. But should one of those things be out of spec or out of balance, again, we can anticipate. It's hot swappable. So if it's problematic, we could send you a new one. You could pull it out and put a new one in and it'd be no problem. But the reason I point this out is I wanted to point out just how granular the detail we can garner from our controller. And it makes us unique. And this is one of the things that makes RoseWater the most complete energy solution on the market. And I really want to thank you for helping me go through this and giving me your comments on it. And I hope to see you again soon. Thanks.
Well, it's our pleasure. We're 2.5 years in, and this is not only a unique product, but it's a standout product because it's the only product that actually does what it says it's going to do in the power category.
Thank you.